Hello, a lovely autumn to all of you out there. It's September 28th, 2023, and this is the Backdrop Weekly Developers Meeting. We get together every week, more or less, to talk about development tasks and priorities for the Backdrop CMS project. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet, calling in from Oakland, California. I'm joined here by Tim, Joseph, and Robert, and we'll do some quick introductions. We'll start with you, Robert, and then we'll go to Tim.
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet from Altadena, California.
Thanks, Robert. Tim, and then Joseph.
Yeah, I'm Tim Erickson. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota today, and I'm St. Paul Tim on the internet. That's all.
Great. And Joseph?
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm a developer from Las Vegas, Nevada.
All right, great. Thank you all for being here today. Jen is out doing horse things, as she is wont to do. So she's en route to Sacramento today. Let's see. It's been a heck of a week this past week. We finished up Backdrop Live last weekend, so that was September 22nd and 23rd. Tim, do you want to give us a little recap on Backdrop Live and how the event went and any outcomes?
Sure. I'll do my best pretty quickly. We had 40 registrations, which was a little towards the low end of our historical. This is our 9th Backdrop Live. We had 40 people register. Participation felt to me pretty good, like what we've had in recent Backdrop Lives. So we might have had a few less registrations, but I don't know, the event seemed to feel in sort of size and engagement pretty similar. We had a pretty full schedule, I think. We definitely had some very interesting topics and discussions. We had the Software Freedom Conservancy came back for a second or a third time to just sort of chat with us about the work they're doing and their ongoing relationship with us. There was I understand, a really good session on Gin, the new admin theme that's been released. I don't know, is there, you were at the session, Nate, was there an official release from Gin yet, or?
That's the news in Contribland, is that there is an official release that just came out yesterday. So that's yeah, brand new. Although Gin during Backdrop Live was looking excellent, but now there is an official release. I haven't checked the version on it, but yeah, brand new.
Great. Another session that I didn't attend that got really good reviews, that we're going to try to get, that did not get recorded, but we're going to try to redo it so it does get recorded, was RG Piano. Apparently did a really good session on like implementing hooks in Backdrop that some experienced Backdrop contributors said was really helpful. So I think we want to get that in our YouTube channel if we can. We did Backdrop for beginners. Had a nice session. Yeah, I'll just, the one other thing that like could affect core that I thought was a really specific outcome that happened in a meeting I was in, so I can mention it, is Robert Garagos did a nice demo of the demo module, which has been around for a long time, but I was unaware of. Real quickly, the demo module lets you sort of take a snapshot of a website in the website, so this doesn't have to be local. I was able to use this on a demo site on backdrop.org. So on backdrop.org, I could spin up a demo site, add the demo module, I could build some sample content, take a snapshot, make some additional changes. And when I take when you take the snapshot, it basically stores a copy of the database and the files directory in the files folder. So then you can restore, and then you can, with I click restore at any time, and it snaps back to that. I mean, you could do the same thing with backup and migrate. This is just a much simpler, straightforward. Well, yeah, you can, because you can take a snapshot, can't you, with backup and migrate? You would store it on your server. But I think the difference of this module is just that it's more streamlined. Also, it has the option, if you wanted to set up a demo site that people could log in and make changes to, you can set it to automatically restore to the default every, excuse me, got a spam call, it automatically restore. You can set it to restore every hour or every 24 hours to the original. And I think that was its original intent. Was somebody could set up a demo Drupal site, allow users to create user accounts, edit the nodes, see how the site worked, and then it would just automatically restore. And the big revelation from possible revelation for me was that might have implications for a very popular issue we've had in the issue core for a long time, which is adding backup and migrate functionality to core. The idea being sort of not to import, or not to add backup and migrate module to core, but to add the ability to do simple backups, so that when people are doing things like their upgrade, and we say, please make a backup of your site before you push this button, that we could, rather than say, go install some module to do a backup, we could actually just give them a button and say, click this button, do a backup, and then before you do your upgrade. And I think that could be really useful. And it might be worth looking closer at this contrib module to see if there's something there we could use. And if anybody else, well, Nate, you were the only other one here that was at Backdrop Live. If you want to add anything else, but I think those were some of the highlights for me. I think it went really well. The next one is scheduled in roughly 6 months. But
Yeah, overall, yeah, great. I don't think I have much to add there. Oh, we wanted to mention about recordings, the ones that we did have from the B block. We recorded most or all of those sessions, and we're still in progress, getting those up onto the YouTube channel. It appears as though the various moderators, myself, Tim, and Luke, have the recordings, and so we need to coordinate to get them uploaded. But yeah, we'll hopefully get to that soon.
And lastly, the CK editor discussion, which we may talk about later. We don't have to go into detail on it, but that was a discussion of relevance to this meeting.
Yeah, we can roll right into that actually, because it's the next topic on the agenda.
Okay.
And there aren't too many upshots from that. Indigo Zala has been the most prolific person working on CK Editor 5 recently. I did see both in Contrib and in the Zulip chat that Indigo Zala got kind of frustrated with CK Editor 5's API, which I completely understand, because it is rather difficult and opaque at times. And also, the editor is really focused on the way that CK Source wants their editor to work. So it's highly opinionated and not great for extending, which is a big problem. But she, in her frustration, created and ported the TinyMCE module and integrated that with Backdrop. I'm not sure if this is a really productive turn of events, but I think that it's interesting that that's now available as a contingency, because this 4 to 5 transition is definitely pretty tricky. But something that I did want to say about that is that we spent a good amount of time during the Backdrop Live discussion talking about generic HTML support, which I hadn't really looked at a whole lot before Backdrop Live. And so there's issue number 28 in the CK Editor 5 issue queue that's in Contrib for generic HTML support. And over the course of preparing for the discussion and then following up after it, I looked into it thoroughly, and I think Indigo Zala has kind of solved the problem there. So issue number 28, we merged the related pull request to add generic HTML support. Surprisingly, reused a large amount of code from the CK Editor 4 module to determine what tags should be allowed, and it works great, quite honestly. So yeah, it looks as though the biggest issue that we were facing of having CK Editor 5 not mangle legacy content, as far as our testing goes, seems to be a solved problem, which is really great. The CK Editor 5 still has a long ways to go as a contrib module. Notably, issue number 1 in the queue is integrating with the media browser. I started taking a look at that a little bit more after Backdrop Live, and I have a kind of mental path forward for it, but it's still going to take a fair amount of work. So anyway, so Seek Editor 5 still kind of chugging along. Our general goal is to get that ready and completed for Backtop 127. So that would be in January, which in my mind that seems really close, even though we just had the the release. September to January seems like a short window. So that's the overall goal and state of things for for Seek Editor 5 and my recap of Backdrop Live. Let's see. Speaking of versions, 127 coming out in September. We just had 126 come out. It's now been 2 weeks since the release, or 2 weeks tomorrow, since the release of 126. And we did have a regression in 126 that has already been addressed. It's issue 6226. And that is that on Windows, the Backdrop 126 installer module fails to install any modules on Windows. So it's not quite a niche problem that it only affects Windows users, but it affects one of our most prominent pieces of functionality, I think, for new users. And just generally a little non sequitur on installer module. Almost every presentation I went to on Backdrop at Backdrop Live used installer module. It was just really eye-opening to see that it has become such a standard part of our practices that every developer wanting to show, every presenter wanting to show, okay, I'm starting from scratch. Now I'm going to install X module. They start with a blank slate and then they go and install the module through installer to really give people I'm starting from nothing. Let's start at step one, which is install the module. And I just found that really refreshing.
It's interesting because I never use Project Installer on my client projects because we install everything through a different workflow. But I use the installer module all the time when just doing experimenting, testing, demo sites, and certainly presentations. I use it really heavily.
Yep, exactly. So anyway, 6226, that issue's already been fixed and merged, but we need to make a release for it. And so we kind of have a loose plan to make a release sometime early next week. Maybe Tuesday would be a good day, I think, for me personally. So we might shoot for that as a release day. Also, just another note about releases. There were security releases yesterday for Drupal. People may have seen come through for contrib modules, one of which was Entity Cache. And in a quick audit of the issue that affected Entity Cache for Drupal 7 and the Entity Cache that is built into Backdrop Core, it does not seem as though we were affected. We did do a quick check to see, and so just a heads up that if you had some small concern about that, it doesn't seem to be something that affects us. Sorry, my head's a little all over the place. We have a couple of issues that we've discussed recently. It might be nice to kind of follow up on those. Last week, we discussed the contextual link triggers are sometimes unreachable. That's issue 5273 that Robert had been working on. We merged that issue, yay! So that will be in the release next week. Let's see. There's also issue 2062. Remove leftover help text on maximum image size field. Robert and I went back and forth on that one. And that one just needs another round of review, it looks like, to get that one completed. I think that one's a kind of shoe-in at this point. It's a very trivial set of changes, so we can probably get that one in quickly as well. Let's see, there's issue 206 that we discussed last week as well. Replace module load include with a more generic function. I am not quite sure where this one is. Let's see. You made an update, Robert. Kiam Laluno came in and left a code comment. Oh yeah, I started to answer this question, but I'm not sure that I finished it. That Kiam Laluno just says that there's a code comment that says do not use this function in an install file, but that's exactly what this particular line does. But I thought that was interesting because as far as I could tell, your code path, the way you updated core, you left the code paths identical before and after the change, and so it actually kind of felt like what you're doing is the safest thing, even though it's what the code comment specifically says not to do.
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely a little bit of a head scratcher there. Yeah.
So what do you think about, I mean,
Well, I was wondering the same thing. I wasn't quite sure what to do. I started writing a whole paragraph about what I just said. I was like, well, it looks as though we're just doing what we were doing before, and that's a good thing. But then I was like, well, I don't know. Like, it seems like either we should be able to tell people that it is okay, or just remove that code comment if it is okay, or explain why this one situation is okay, or we should start using module load install or whatever it is that. But I don't install load file. I don't know. There's another one that's specifically
yeah,
from install module or install .inc. So
yeah,
maybe we should be using that. I kind of feel like something needs to happen here. The docs need to be updated. The approach should change, or we should. Yeah, I guess those are actually the two options. That the approach should change, or the docs should be updated. But or we say it's an existing issue and we do it in a follow-up, I guess. So all three of those, I don't know, it just seems like some course, like he raises a valid point. I just don't know what the
yeah.
answer should be yet.
So since we are using it in an install and has been used, I guess, for a long time. I mean, the original function was used to load an install file. It always passed all tests. It still passes all tests. Code path's the same. It seems like maybe just that code comment is no longer applicable.
I think that what it might be, if I just speculate a little bit, is that module, I can't remember what the previous thing is.
The module load include, I think, was in, they are in different files. Backdrop include file, the new function is in common.inc. I think module load include was in something else.
Yeah, I think that our new function and module load include, because they're similar in their approaches, they both share the same limitation in that it will only include a file of an enabled module. So it needs the module to be on first, because otherwise when you say like backdrop get path, it doesn't return anything because it can't, if it's not on, then it doesn't find it. And that's the difference with install load include, or whatever it's called, is that it works even if a module is disabled. So maybe that's the clarification that we need, because
So it's the code comment would be, don't use this if it's possible that the module is not yet installed.
correct. Yeah, or not enabled. Because so there's this ongoing, just very confusing thing about Backdrop and Drupal 7, that if you install a module and then disable it, and then there's new versions of that module, the update hooks still run even while the module is disabled. And so that is what really gets developers frequently, is that they think that they can use code inside of their modules in their update hooks, and they can't rely on that. Really, if you're responsible when writing your update hooks, you really should be doing direct database queries and direct config updates, and that's it. You can't really use the APIs that are inside of your module to make schema changes or things like that, because the thing about modules is that those APIs change, and if you leave that module out of date for a very long time and then you jump forward a whole lot of versions, the APIs that are in your newer module might not have worked or been compatible with your update hooks from a long time ago. So unfortunately, the nature of things is that you really got to be very low level in your update hooks.
Mhm.
So anyway, yes, I think, Robert, that would be the right thing, because I think that what happens here is that the code path is that this is at a point where it says just load all of the module files, and then inside of that, then it loads an individual thing. And so I think this is a different scenario where it's like it might be getting called from the installer or from an update system, but it's not about loading a particular module that might be disabled. It's about loading all of the modules that we know are enabled. So yeah, I think you're right that if we correct the code comment to say, yeah, don't call it on a module that might be disabled. I don't know, something like that.
I'll work on that. I think I can come up with good language for that.
Okay. Okay. And the other thing that is kind of obvious about this, but I think that we should separate out, is that we should probably start using this new function, like
Mhm.
in core. But I think that we're doing the right thing, which is getting the function in first and then start using it, because like with the amount of back and forth that we've gone on in this issue, I think getting it in first is probably the right. Like, let's not make it bigger, because it just
Yeah.
makes re-rolling it harder. Okay. Great. Those are all of the items I had for today. Do you guys have any other issues that you've looked at recently, or just any other topics? Okay. Well, that's fine. Maybe we just have a short little meeting today. Yeah, big props to the organizing group of Backdrop Live. That's mostly Luke, who's not here, and Tim. And yeah, just another successful, very engaging event. I loved being there, and yeah, smooth sailing, it seemed like. Uh, yeah, just really enjoyed that, and all of our infrastructure that we have for hosting Backdrop Live just worked really great. So, all right, let's close for today. Thank you all for being here, and thanks out there for those people that watch these videos. So